Hello friends and welcome. The true events on today's episode may be disturbing for some viewers due to frightening situations, graphic scenes, and death. Viewer discretion is advised. Feel free to skip this video if necessary and always put your mental health first. In November 2011, Latoya Ammons, her mother, and 3 children moved into a rental house on a quiet street of small one-story homes in Gary, Indiana. Latoya and her mother, Rose Campbell, reported hearing footsteps going up the basement stairs after midnight and the creak of the door opening between the basement and the kitchen. One night, Rose recounted waking up to see a shadowy figure of a man pacing in her living room. When she got up to investigate, she discovered large, wet boot prints on the floor. But that wasn't the only strange thing happening in the house. Over the next few months, the incidents grew worse. Latoya described witnessing her children levitating above their beds, being physically thrown out of the bathroom, getting injured by flying objects, and speaking in unnatural, deep voices. Rose recalled telling her daughter, "We need help. We need to talk to someone who knows how to deal with it." Latoya and Rose contacted local churches, but most refused to listen. According to the Indy Star, one church official told the family that their house had spirits in it and suggested they clean the home with bleach and ammonia, then use oil to draw crosses on every door and window. Latoya also followed a clairvoyant's advice to set up an altar in her basement. She draped a white sheet over an end table, placed a white candle and a Mary, Joseph, and Jesus statue on it, and opened a Bible to Psalm 91. She and another person wore white t-shirts and white scarves around their heads while burning sage and sulfur throughout the house. Latoya said nothing happened for 3 days, but then things took a frightening turn. The family reported that demons possessed Latoya and her children. The children's eyes bulged, evil smiles appeared on their faces, and their voices deepened during these episodes. Rose said that the demons did not affect her because she was born with protection from evil. On April 19, 2012, the family visited their family physician, Dr. Jeffrey Onyeku. Latoya explained to the doctor the terrifying events that they were experiencing. Dr. Onyeku told the Indy Star the situation was bizarre, adding, 20 years and I've never heard anything like that in my life. I was scared myself when I walked into the room." In his medical notes, Dr. Onyeku wrote the words delusions of ghost in home, hallucinations, history of ghost at home, and delusional. During the visit, Rose said that Latoya's sons cursed Dr. Onyeku in demonic voices. Medical staff said the youngest boy was lifted and thrown into the wall with nobody touching him, a Department of Child Services report read. Someone from the doctor's office called 911, prompting the arrival of 7 or 8 police officers and several ambulances, according to Dr. Onyeku. Everybody was. They couldn't figure out exactly what was happening, he recalled. As police and emergency personnel took her sons to the Methodist Hospital campus in Gary, someone contacted the Indiana Department of Child Services to investigate Latoya for possible child abuse or neglect. The unidentified caller suggested that Latoya might have a mental illness and that her children were performing for their mother. The case was assigned to DCS Family Case Manager Valerie Washington, who conducted the initial investigation. In her intake officer's report, she noted that the hospital examined Latoya and her children and found them healthy, while a hospital psychiatrist concluded that Latoya was of sound mind. When Valerie spoke with Latoya, the 7-year-old boy began growling with his teeth, and his eyes rolled back in his head. He then locked his hands around his older brother's throat and refused to release him until the adults pried his hands open. Later that evening, the 7-year-old reportedly said, "It's time to die. I will kill you," in a deep voice to his older brother. In an eerie turn of events, Valerie's original DCS report recounts that the 9-year-old had a weird grin and walked backwards up a wall to the ceiling. He flipped over Rose, landing on his feet, never letting go of his grandmother's hand. Walker, the nurse at the time, corroborated this account. He walked up the wall, flipped over her, and stood there. There's no way he could have done that. When police later asked Valerie if the boy had run up the wall as if performing an acrobatic trick, she answered no. According to a police report, Valerie stated the boy glided backward on the floor, wall, and ceiling. DCS eventually took emergency custody of Latoya's 3 children without a court order. On April 20th, 2012, a hospital chaplain contacted Reverend Michael Magino, the priest at St. Stephen Martyr Parish in Maryville, Indiana, to perform an exorcism on Latoya's 9-year-old son. Reverend Magino performed 3 major exorcisms on Latoya at his church and blessed her new home in Indianapolis. Afterwards, Reverend Magino stated that he was convinced demons were tormenting the family and that there were ghosts in the house. Rose and Latoya returned to Carolina Street to allow Valerie to inspect the home's condition, accompanied by 3 police officers. According to police records, one of the officers' audio recorders malfunctioned. The power light flashed to indicate the batteries were dying despite the officer inserting fresh batteries earlier that day. When another officer recorded audio and played it back later, he heard an unknown voice whisper, "Hey," according to Lake County police records. One photo taken at the house appeared to have a cloudy white image resembling a face, while a second photo seemed to depict a female figure in green. Latoya regained custody of her children in November 2012 after moving to a new house and successfully meeting the objectives of the DCS case plan for her family. In a request for dismissal of wardship filed by the DCS in January 2013, it was noted that Latoya and her children have made progress and participated in home-based therapy. The report also said that the family had not experienced any issue with demonic presences or spirits in their Indianapolis home, and they are moving on from that point in their lives. The family continues to attend church regularly on Sundays, but they are no longer fixated solely on religion to explain or cope with the children's behavior issues. Their haunted home was eventually purchased for $35,000, the Courier-Journal reported. The article said the current tenant called the police to complain when reporters and photographers showed up, and she declined offers of money and interview requests. It's unknown what Latoya and her children are doing now, but the Deliverance director Lee Daniels told THR he spoke with her while making the Netflix movie. Lee said that he talked to Latoya once or twice at the beginning of the process. "It's my interpretation of her life. I purposely didn't want to meet her because I was nervous," he said, "but I spoke to her and she's lovely. She was at peace." Danielle Harkins, a 35-year-old literacy teacher at Leaman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center near St. Petersburg, Florida, started acting strangely a month before her divorce was finalized on June 1st, 2012. She developed extreme religious beliefs, including an interest in demonic rituals. Lisa Cope, Danielle's next-door neighbor for the past 4 years, said the last time she saw her, Danielle had taken an interest in extreme religious beliefs. "She was my friend," Lisa said. She cried on my shoulder when she and her husband were getting a divorce. Lisa didn't know what to make of her neighbor's newfound religious interest. She told me I was okay. She said I didn't have any demons. Before dusk on June 9th, 2012, 7 of Danielle's former students and Danielle gathered around a small fire near St. Petersburg Pier, dancing and chanting. Danielle told the group that they needed to rid their bodies of demons by cutting their skin to let the evil spirits out. Then they needed to burn the wounds to ensure that those spirits would not return. Danielle held a lighter to one teen's hand when the wind blew the flame out. That prompted her to douse his hand in perfume before setting it on fire. The boy suffered second-degree burns. Another teen was cut on the neck with a broken bottle, and Danielle used a flame to heat a small key, which she then used to cauterize the wound. None of the students told their parents about the ritual, but one student texted a friend about it. The friend notified their parents, who in turn told the police. Soon after, on June 12, Danielle was arrested for aggravated battery and child abuse of her former students and held in jail on a $55,000 bail. Danielle and her former students remained quiet on the details of that night. Danielle didn't tell police what type of religion would require such drastic measures and what she was trying to accomplish with the ritual. Obviously, it's very strange, said St. Petersburg police spokesman Mike Putz. The motivation for the ritual are very unknown to us. In interviews with detectives, the teens were reluctant to talk about the ritual beyond the basic facts of what happened. Danielle was suspended without pay from her job at the family center, where she had worked for about 4.5 years, said Carolyn Chance, the center's administrator. We had no suspicion of any of this, Carolyn said. We do everything we can to know our employees. After her arrest, Lisa noticed that Danielle disappeared. She picked up her mail and phoned Danielle's ex-husband, George Harkins. She was relieved to learn that the couple's 2 children were fine. That night, Lisa saw the story on the news. I don't know where she got the whole demon idea, she said. Who knows what makes people think those things? Danielle was found guilty of just 1 count of child abuse and 1 count of aggravated battery, as the other kids would not testify. She was sentenced for 6 months, and no more information had been available since her 2012 release. On August 19, 2016, in Enfield, North London, 26-year-old Kennedy Ife began acting strangely and aggressive following a pain in his throat. He reportedly bit his father, threatened to cut off his own genitals, and complained of a snake inside of him before his family restrained him to a bed with cable ties, ropes, handcuffs, and excessive force, fearing he was possessed by evil spirits. The family was connected with the Jesus Sanctuary Ministries in Southeast London and held deep and unusual religious beliefs. Instead of calling for professional help or taking him to see a general practitioner, his mother sought advice from a minister. Over the following 3 days, the family attempted to cure Kennedy through restraint and prayer. Kennedy was complaining of dehydration when his brother Harry called emergency services. Kennedy developed breathing issues after being restrained for 67 hours and was pronounced dead on August 22nd at 10:17 a.m. His brother Colin told police, "It's clear that thing was in him, what we believed was a demon because it was not natural. It was trying to kill him," he said. "We had to restrain him from himself. It was clear that if we didn't restrain him, he would have tried to harm people in our family." While police were at the house, Colin carried out an attempted resurrection by chanting and praying for Kennedy. All 7 of Kennedy's family members were accused of manslaughter, false imprisonment, and causing or allowing the death of a vulnerable adult. A post-mortem examination revealed over 60 wounds, including a possible bite on Kennedy's body, and his father, along with 4 of his brothers, sustained injuries as well. At the trial, the jury heard Kennedy's brother Roy testify that Kennedy was suffering from a manifestation of lack of sleep, and he never thought it was life-threatening. His other brother, Colin, said Kennedy ranted about the mark of the beast, 666. His father, Kenneth, ordered his son to take shifts and use overwhelming force. Kenneth denied the accusations that his Nigerian ancestry and claims of associations with cults, occults, and secret societies played any part in Kennedy's death. After a 4-day jury deliberation, all 7 family members were cleared of charges on March 14, 2019. Anna Elizabeth Michel, or Annelise, was born on September 21, 1952 in Lieblavink, Bavaria, West Germany, to a Roman Catholic family. Annelise and her 3 sisters were raised by their parents, Joseph and Anna. She attended Mass twice a week. When she was 16, she experienced a severe convulsion, which was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. In 1973, Annelise attended the University of Würzburg. Her classmates later described her as withdrawn and very religious. In June 1970, Annelise had a 3rd seizure at the psychiatric hospital where she had been staying. She was prescribed anticonvulsive drugs for the first time, which did not alleviate the problem. She began seeing devil's faces at various times of the day. That same month, she was prescribed another medication to treat psychosis, schizophrenia, disturbed behavior, and delusions. By 1973, she began experiencing depression, hallucinated while praying, and she complained about hearing voices telling her she was damned and would rot in hell. Annelise's treatment in a psychiatric hospital did not improve her health, and her depression worsened. Long-term treatment was ineffective, and she grew increasingly frustrated with her medical care after taking prescription drugs for 5 years. She became intolerant of Christian sacred places and objects, such as the crucifix. Annelise visited San Damiano with a family friend who regularly organized Christian pilgrimages. Her guide concluded that she was suffering from demonic possession because she was unable to walk past a crucifix and refused to drink the water of a Christian holy spring. Father Ernst Alt said, Annelise told me, the Frau Hein confirmed this, that she was unable to enter the shrine. She approached it with the greatest hesitation, then said that the soil burned like fire and she simply could not stand it. She then walked around the shrine in a wide arc and tried to approach it from the back. She looked at the people who were kneeling in the area surrounding the little garden, and it seemed to her that while praying, they were gnashing their teeth. She got as far as to the edge of the little garden, then she had to turn back. Coming from the front again, she had to avert her glance from the picture of Christ in the chapel. She made it several times to the garden, but could not get past it. She also noted that she could no longer look at medals or pictures of saints. They sparkled so immensely that she could not stand it. Annelise's mother said that she saw stigmata on her daughter, believing she could communicate with Mary, the mother of Jesus. Annelise's family and community became convinced that she was possessed and consulted several priests to request an exorcism. The priests declined, recommending the continuation of medical treatment, and informed the family that exorcisms require the bishop's permission. In the Catholic Church, official approval for an exorcism is granted when the subject meets the strictly set criteria and is considered to be suffering from possession and under demonic control. Intense dislike for religious objects and supernatural powers are some of the first indications. Annelise worsened physically and displayed aggression, injured herself, drank her own urine, and ate insects. In November 1973, she began treatment with an anti-seizure drug and mood stabilizer. She was prescribed antipsychotic drugs during the course of the religious rites and consumed them frequently. Despite taking these neuroleptic medications, Annelise's symptoms worsened and she began growling, seeing demons, and throwing things. Father Alt declared that Annelise didn't look like an epileptic and that he did not observe her experiencing seizures. He believed that she was suffering from demonic possession and urged the local bishop to allow an exorcism. In a letter to Father Alt in 1975, Annelise wrote, "I am nothing. Everything about me is vanity. What should I do? I have to improve. You pray for me." And also once told him, "I want to suffer for other people, but this is so cruel." In September 1975, Bishop Joseph Stungel granted Father William Renz permission to perform an exorcism according to the Rituali Romanum, but ordered total secrecy. Father Renz performed the first session on September 24th. Annelise began increasingly speaking about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priest of the modern church. Her parents stopped consulting doctors at her request and relied solely on the exorcism rites. A total of 67 exorcism sessions, 1 or 2 each week, lasted up to 4 hours each, were performed over approximately 10 months in 1975 and 1976. Towards the end of her life, Annelise began to refuse food. On July 1st, 1976, 23-year-old Annelise died in her home. The autopsy report stated the cause of death as malnutrition and dehydration, resulting from almost a year in a state of near starvation while the rites of exorcism were performed. She weighed 68 pounds, suffered broken knees from 500 continuous genuflections, was unable to move without assistance, and was reported to have contracted pneumonia. After an investigation, the prosecutor maintained that Annelise's death could have been prevented as late as 1 week before she died. On July 14, 1977, Annelise's parents and Roman Catholic priests Ernst Alt and William Renz were charged with negligent homicide. The court recommended that none of the involved parties be jailed. Instead, the recommended sentence for the priest was a fine, while the prosecution concluded that the parents should be exempt from punishment as they had suffered enough, a mitigating legal factor in German penal law. The trial began on March 30th, 1978 in the district court and drew intense interest. Doctors testified that Annelise was not possessed, stating that the manifestations of demonic possession was a psychological effect of her strict religious upbringing, as well as her epilepsy. The parents' attorney argued that the exorcism was legal and that the German Constitution protected citizens in the unrestricted exercise of their religious beliefs. The defense played tapes recorded at the exorcism sessions, sometimes featuring what was claimed to be demons arguing, to assert their claim that Annelise was possessed by 6 demons. Both priests claimed that the demons identified themselves as Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Belial, Legion, Adolf Hitler, and Nero. They also stated that Annelise was finally freed of demonic possession resulting from the exorcism just before her death. Bishop Stungel said that he was not aware of Annelise's alarming health condition when he approved the exorcism and did not testify in court. On April 1st, 1978, Annelise's parents and the 2 priests were convicted of negligent homicide but were given suspended prison sentences and were ordered to share the cost of the legal proceedings. The sentences have been described as stiffer than those requested by the prosecutor. By approving the ancient exorcism rite, the church drew public and media attention. According to author Reverend Bishop John M. Duffy, the case was a misidentification of mental illness. The Catholic Church now says she was not possessed, but instead mentally ill. After the trial, Joseph and Anna asked the authorities for permission to exhume the remains of their daughter because she had been buried in undue hurry in a cheap coffin. Almost 2 years after the burial, on February 25, 1978, her remains were placed in a new oak coffin lined with tin. The official reports state that the body bore signs consistent with deterioration of a corpse of that age. The family and the priest were discouraged from viewing Annelise's remains. Father Renz later stated that he had been prevented from entering the mortuary. Annelise's gravesite remained a pilgrimage site as she is revered by small groups of Catholics who believe she atoned for wayward priests and sinful youth. The number of officially sanctioned exorcisms decreased in Germany following the incident, despite Pope Benedict XVI's support for wider use of the practice as compared to that of his predecessor, Pope John Paul II, who tightened the rules to permit only rare cases for exorcisms in 1999. Annelise's father, Joseph Michel, died in 1999 at the age of 83. In a 2006 interview, Annelise's mother, Anna Michel, stated that she did not regret her actions, saying, "I know we did the right thing because I saw the sign of Christ on her hands." Anna Michel died on June 16, 2012, at the age of 93. On June 6, 2013, a fire engulfed the house where Anna had lived. Although the local police determined it was a case of arson, some locals attributed the fire to the exorcism case. The 2005 film The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which focused both on the court case and the exorcism, the 2006 film Requiem, and the 2011 film Annelise, The Exorcist Tapes, are loosely based on Annelise's story. Audio from her exorcism tapes have been used for the metal band Ice Nine Kills for the intro of their song Communion of the Cursed, and the video game Faith, the Unholy Trinity for a boss fight. To close out this episode, there are a few personal encounters I've had in my childhood home. When I was younger, a family member temporarily stayed with us for a few months in an upstairs bedroom. I don't remember much when he was with us, but my mom told me about times where she smelled incense from that room. I do remember strange occurrences in that house afterwards. I felt watched, feelings of dread when I walked by the room from a dark presence lingering, and feeling the hairs on the back of my neck raise when I was in the basement with strong urges to run upstairs before something bad would happen. As a child, I was terrified at night and would spend several nights in my parents' bed, where I would hear the cupboards in the kitchen opening and closing while my parents slept. As a young teen, I had a small ceramic frog that I kept on top of my jewelry box. One day, my mom and I were the only ones home when I left my room. When I returned a while later, my jewelry box was open with the frog sitting inside it. I felt goosebumps when I saw that and closed my jewelry box, placing the frog on top of it again. I casually went downstairs to get out of my room and asked my mom if she opened my jewelry box. I knew she didn't because she wasn't even upstairs, but I needed to ask. She said no, and there had never been an explanation of how it happened. There were nights as a teen where I could feel or see a dark figure out of the corner of my eye, either in my room or in my doorway. I would close my eyes, pretending to sleep until I actually fell asleep. One of the most unsettling experiences I had was when I was around 16 and I fell asleep on the couch in the basement when my dad was playing Legend of Zelda. I woke up the next morning on the couch in the living room upstairs. I asked my mom if my dad carried me upstairs, and she said no, that I was sleepwalking late at night. She was in the living room when I came up from the basement with my arms stretched in front of me, mumbled something when she asked me a question, and laid down on the couch. I had never sleptwalked before or had ever done it again. I told my mom okay, but it really freaked me out that it happened after I fell asleep in the basement. Several of my family members hate my childhood house and believe it's haunted. 2 of my cousins have said they saw a dark figure in the window of that bedroom when they were outside. I have even seen a figure too in that window, but dismissed it as my imagination. Even a family member who doesn't believe in ghosts admitted that he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up one of the times he was in the basement and felt he needed to get out of there. I would still have dreams of being in that house even though I haven't lived there for about 25 years. Normally the dreams would be different, but I always dreamt of a demonic presence in that upstairs bedroom or in the basement. The last time I remembered dreaming of that house was almost a year ago. In a span of 2 weeks, I dreamt 3 times of that house. What I was doing in the house with my family would be different, but there is one scene that was the exact same. The doorbell rings and I answer the door. There's a little girl who looks like an innocent Girl Scout, but asks in a deeper, somewhat demonic voice, "Can I come in?" I knew she was a black-eyed child or a demonic presence trying to get back into the house. I would say no, give an excuse of why she couldn't come in, and would wake up shortly after. I didn't remember that dream or the visit from the demon girl until I had that dream again with the exact same demon girl wearing the exact same clothes and asking the exact same question after I answered the back door. The 3rd time it happened, I woke up and actually remembered the dream in that it was the 3rd time I was asked that question. Since remembering those 3 dreams and talking about it to my family and some friends, I haven't dreamt about the house or that demon girl again. As far as I know, there haven't been any more strange encounters in that house, and I hope it stays that way. Thank you, friends, for joining me today. If you enjoyed the stories on this episode, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be alerted to all future content. If you have a story you would like me to read, feel free to email me your submission for a chance to hear your story on a future episode. Thank you again, friends, for your love and support. I'm Avarea, and until next time, take care.